Jamie from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today my Get Creeping on Halloween, April 2023 Monster Mixed Tape. So I'm pulling in Ink Road Stamps, Monster Mash, and my favorite things, cassette tape die. I didn't end up using the rest of the mixed tape card kit with this one. I kind of thought about it and just I ended up, getting sidetracked and going a separate way. So the card kit actually came with some clear adhesive sheets and this gorgeous black. It's like a black vellum that, reminds you of that tape that is inside those cassette tapes. So I did pull in just a scratch piece of acetate there to do my clear window in my cassettes. And then I die cut a bunch of pieces out. I didn't die cut everything I needed right away. This is the first time I've pulled this one out and put it together. So it took me a little bit of time. For next time, I would definitely do some full adhesive back sheets on those pieces that I'm adding that ScoreTape to right now. It just would have been easier to add in the acetate and the other stuff if it would have already been sticky, and it probably would have saved some time. So, for next time. That's what happens when I do things the first time. I figure out ways that probably would have been better. I had thought about doing some of those words on top of, like doing some text on top of them and doing it that way, and then I decided to go a different route, which was fine. I ended up using that text anyways, just later on. So let me tell you a little bit about the hashtag Get Creeping on Halloween. I absolutely love Halloween. It's where all of my, shall we say, creative juices flow the freest or the best. It's my favorite holiday, probably because all it involves is candy and dressing up. Granted, I don't dress up like we used to because we don't really go out anymore, and our kids are old enough that they don't go out trick-or-treating, at least not with mom. So it's one of my favorite holidays just because the simplicity of it and the fun of it. It's just, it's Halloween. So I always have 5,000 bazillion ideas for Halloween makes, and I never get to half of them. And so Kate from Kate's Craft and I were chatting last October, and we were talking about all the cards that we didn't get made for the Halloween season. And I said, why not do a card a month for Halloween? I absolutely adore Halloween. So being it is where I find my most, inspiration when it comes to creating, that is where that hashtag was born. So Get Creeping on Halloween. I will post my Halloween make for the month on the last day of every month at midnight. So, I guess it's the start of the last day of the month because it's at midnight. But that is and anyone is allowed to play. Go ahead and use that hashtag Get Creeping on Halloween, either here on YouTube or on Instagram, and I will try to get to them. I'm not always great about it, but I usually see them the next month if I don't see them the month of. So for this one, I had kind of toyed with I wanted to do a slimline. I knew I wanted to do a slimline, so it was just kind of layout, and this one wasn't supposed to go the way it went. It just kind of went this way. So I ended up going vertical slimline because that sentiment stamp fit better in the vertical format. So it was wide enough to do my slimline card. So it's not going to cover this sheet. This sheet is 4 by 8.5. And so I just needed it to be close. And it's going to get inked over, so it's not a huge deal. I am bringing in my new to me Tailored Expression anti-static powder tool. I am currently in love with it. It's a wider area that it spreads out, and it doesn't leave, it leaves the anti-static powder there, but I don't find it like dusty all over the place as my other one. My other one has its purpose, but this one is nice for doing that embossing technique. So I'm currently liking it. So for this one, I'm doing the pinch technique when it comes to my embossing powders. I'm bringing in an old, close to my heart one that was like, I think it's olive green, and then bringing in some, it's orange, so I don't remember which orange it is, from Tim Holtz line, the glazes, and then of course bringing in some silver tinsel embossing powder to get a little bit of that metallic look, because I want to kind of go with the colors that my cassette tapes are. So that was where that one came in. And I will say that the camera does not do this emboss resist technique justice, because it is so pretty with that silver metallic. But it kind of gives that, you know, I don't know, molded look, or the color variation, all the things. So I did end up bringing in my Tim Holtz stamp platform for this one. I just find it, in my head, I just find it easier when I'm doing this type of technique to move things. I don't have the limitation of the 4 walls on the Misty. So this is one that I really like for that. And yes, I used my head to hold up the door and help wind it up, because, you know, I was trying to do it without black ink, and so that clear is really hard to see. So I probably could have gone a little bit heavier on my embossing powder for this last one. I was trying to be stingy. I don't know why, because I have more embossing powder than I'm ever going to use. But so I will heat set this last round of embossing on this one. And so I have my cassette tapes put together. I'm working on my background. This one kind of just comes together in steps. Nothing was planned. This is why I love this series, because it's how I create the best. Just, you know, my mind is going and I just go from one thing to the next. This was not my intended, you know, purpose on any realm here. That was not what I was planning on doing. But I like how the end result ended up being. So I'm bringing in some spiced marmalade, some peel paint, and black soot. I started with the Lost Shadow, but it just was too light for this one. I thought I was going to want that light in there, and then it just looked too white compared to the other colors. So I ended up going over most of that anyways. So I'm bringing in that black soot, that peel paint, and the other one, just kind of going at random, kind of like my distress or my emboss resist is on the other. Does it kind of lose some of it? It kind of does, but I still like the look of the color variation, because then I get some of the green in the orange embossing powder and vice versa. So it gives, you know, just a, I don't want to say distress, because it's really not a distress vibe. I did put a little bit of water on my towel here, and then I'm just going to rub off the ink that is sitting on top. That's kind of one of the, you know, hazards, I guess, of using Distress Oxides, is it does sit on top of your embossing powder. And so this way, I guess it's not really embossing powder at this point, it's melted. But anyways, so that way I can buff that off, and then you get the color that's underneath there. And then I'm bringing in some silver sterling Brutus Monroe Aqua pigments, so it's a silver metallic color. I just wanted to add a little bit more shimmer to it, and of course bring out that silver a little bit more. So I will set that one off to the side, clean up my work surface to a point. You know, as you can tell, I just push everything off to the side. I did do the sentiment, I heat set it. I wasn't going to film this, but I wanted to show you how I did that silver, because the silver is like a foil silver and it doesn't really stick the greatest, and I wanted it to stand out. So I did do a white embossing powder and then heat it, and then go really fast with my embossing powder over the top so it sticks to that melted embossing powder. Now this last one that I did not go well. I think my paper was still too hot, and so it kind of stuck to the paper a little bit. I do end up just going with like a craft pick and kind of picking off where my letters are. For the most part, it worked out okay. I wasn't, you know, but it gives that white, it has that white underside and then that silver, so it makes that silver really pop. And then for my cassettes, they needed some names on them, so I selectively inked my stamp there to get that Monster Mash in there. And then I thought about doing the other one, and I was like, that's just going to be way too much work to try to selectively ink one of the other ones. So the other sentiment was also on a different stamp from that Monster Mash stamp set from Ink Road Stamps. And then I brought in A Strange Thing Happened, which was a Tim Holtz Joanne stamp set, so it's clear. I think that sentiment is actually in this red rubber as well. I don't know if it's size-wise the same, but I liked the option of the clear. I could have done it in a Misty to get where I wanted with the red rubber, but the clear one just makes it a lot easier to hand stamp and get it where you want it. I'm just bringing in some various alcohol markers. So I grabbed some of my Copics, I grabbed some of my Ohuhus. I wasn't too picky. I just wanted to kind of color match what I had on my thing. So I'm bringing in some, I think I did G99 and G94 for my green, which is like that olivey green shades. For my oranges, I'm bringing in the Ohuhu. I think I did 21 and 24 or 23. If you caught the number on there, you're faster than I am. And then I brought in E41 for my brown, or E41, E47, and E44, I think, for my browns. So 41 was for my mummy. My 41, the one nib is, I think I have a bad marker on that one again, and so I've refilled it. The one side was good. I have to replace the other nib. It is what it is. But I just did some tip to tip with my orange and my green to give it a little bit of variegation in the shading there, and then it also helps to go with my background. And then because my sheet here is, you know, heavily embossed and splattered, it does have some curl to it, so the best way to get it to lay flat again is of course with some ScoreTape. It really helps if you can put the ScoreTape on correctly, you know, like straight in a line and not go off the side. But I work with what I've got. It's all good. So I did pull up my two corners, opposite corners, and then I do glue on it. This way I can hopefully line it up straight the first time through and have a little bit of wiggle room. And it usually works for me. This time it did, sometimes it doesn't. But that way I can go and put that on my card base already. And this was a fairly heavy, I think it's a 110-pound piece of cardstock, so it was, didn't want to lay flat the greatest, so I did end up going back in with my score tool or my bone folder to make sure that is leveled up right. I did run my stamp set or my colored images through my brother's Scan and Cut to get that nice white outline. And so I'm just gonna end up starting. I kind of laid it out, thought I liked it. I don't think it ends up this way in the end. I kind of changed it up a little bit here. Probably should have taken a picture so it looked like I planned it, but you know, it is what it is. So I'm gonna pop up my bottom sentiment here. And I wasn't really worried about there being a sentiment on front. It's already got the sentiments on the cassette tapes, but I liked that added little bit on the bottom. And I'm just putting that at an angle. I'm going to cut off the parts that are overhanging. And then I did decide to go with my cassette tapes just a little bit off to the side. I wouldn't have had to do them this way. I just kind of like the idea of it going beyond the card front. And so I'm going to do my top cassette and my bottom cassette, and then I'm going to pop up that middle one just to give it some more variegation and interest. So I'm just using some scrap fun foam. I'm trying to use up all of my scraps that are, you know, that I hoard. So to make my fun foam, I just use the double-sided like big sheet of adhesive on both sides, and then, you know, it works well. So I'm trying to figure out placement. I want there to be a little bit of color variegation, and I thought Frank kind of got hidden when I put him onto that green disc, so I did have to switch my werewolf around with Frankie. So I'm just going to selectively pop up spots. This one didn't need a whole lot of pop because that cassette is already popped up. But this way those little critters kind of pop out from the cassettes. And they kind of look like they're doing their Monster Mash Dash dance. I can't talk today either. Anyways, so I'm going to trim off those excessive pieces there. And then I'm coming in with a black gel glaze pen to do some glossy black eyes on my little critters here, a black nose on my werewolf. And then, of course, Frank needs some eyeballs. And then I'm coming in with a white gel pen as well to add the fangs back in, add some white glowy eyes to my werewolf. And then some gloss or some, I don't know, make those eyes look a little bit more lively on the mummy, which really doesn't make sense because the mummy's dead, so I guess they're not really. Anyways, and then I'm going to bring in some glossy accents for my werewolf eyes. Because all the extras. And then when I was coloring, I didn't grab a red marker and I kind of went over his mouth with a little bit. So I'm coming in with a red glazed gel pen just to add his tongue back in. I don't know if you can really see it in the finished card, but it is there. So there is my finished card. I did do a sentiment or stamped on the inside as well. I hope you enjoy it and have a great rest of your day. Bye!